Well, I hope everybody is having had a really, really good week. Actually, 2 weeks. It's been a hot minute since I was on here for my spooky studio. We were away last Tuesday, but I'm back. And a lot has happened in the last 2 weeks, you know? I mean, we got another Scream movie. What do you think about that? Hello. I am super excited. I was really, really excited for this one. I had really high hopes. I heard a lot of amazing stories about it, great reviews, everything. Hey, Mud. Hey, Danny. Welcome. Glad you guys found this stream. I almost said this scream, but and so this week I figured we could talk together about our thoughts on Scream 6. Now, if you're here joining me either after the live or during the live and you haven't seen Scream 6, I cannot guarantee that there won't be any spoilers, so it might be best if you just pop off and come back after you've seen the movie because I really want to hear your guys' thoughts on it. Also, within the last 2 weeks, we've had the Billy to My Stew come out, a Scream mini documentary about friendships, conventions, fandom, meeting your favorite people, and of course, Scream. So I really hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you for all of your comments on that. We have been going back and forth and reading them, and I will discuss that after the review of Scream 6. So, like I said, if you're just joining, Scream 6, if you haven't seen it, I highly advise that you do not stay for this conversation because who knows what we're gonna say. Might be some spoilers. Hey there, Brandon. Nice to see you. Good evening. So let's start from the beginning, a little bit of a synopsis about Scream 6. So here we are in New York City, not Woodsboro, but not the first time. Of course, we remember in Scream 3, we were in LA. And a little bit of a, big city feel. We've had a lot of monsters and horror movies take place in the big city, most notably Jason Takes Manhattan, which, of course, was being watched in the movie. The movie opens, we're starting to get into spoilers here, so if you really want me to go through it, I mean, fine, I'm going to ruin it for you if you hadn't seen it. But we are introduced to Miss Samara Weaving, who is apparently a film professor, and she's waiting for her date who just can't seem to find the venue. So she goes looking for him and somehow finds herself in a dark alley. She fell for that one, and she gets stabbed by Ghostface. But we get a little bit of a twist here. Instead of just slash, that's the opening, Ghostface is revealed to be some guy, and we see him put everything away and he walks onto the campus. And who does he run into but Tara? So there is the connection to a Ghostface killer. He goes into his house, or rather, apartment slash dorm, and he opens up a closet, and inside is a lot of Scream and Stab memorabilia, which, if you remember from my theories, that there would be some kind of, horror fan collection angle, which was a nice dupe because I'm sure that the makers of Scream 6 thought that people would assume that. And they got me. They definitely did get me. So he answers the phone. Apparently, it's practice. He thinks it's his roommate slash the other killer. He opens up his fridge, and there is the killer butchered. He turns around behind him, and there is a ghost face who was just super brutal, who's like, I don't give a crap about, the movies or anything like that. And he's got the worn ghost face mask. And then we get the intro, which sick way to have ghost faces and then take them out. So as far as we know, there's at least two ghost faces in this movie, but they're not related. They just all kind of want to kill the same people. So the movie goes on, and we see that, Gail is nearby trying to cover things. There's a couple of other kills with people on campus, and Sam's like, Gail, what are you doing here? Tara's trying to ignore everything. There's the core four. There's new characters, including a curly-haired guy, Sam's, scandalous roommate who has a gentleman caller over. And once the murders start rolling, then we're introduced to a police officer played by Dylan McDermott, who we also learn is her roommate Quinn's dad. And, Dylan McDermott, we love seeing him. And so the story goes on, and sure enough, Mindy's there, and she has a girlfriend. Kirby returns and it's wonderful. And, we're a little suspicious of Kirby, but she's young and her and Gale reunite. And then we get some nods to Scream 4. And I'm so happy about that because you guys know I love Scream 4. And we just start rolling into this. And, apparently Quinn dies and Mindy's girlfriend dies. And then they go on a subway and they're kind of Mindy's separated from the group with the one weird curly haired guy, and it's Halloween time and we get all kinds of characters we recognize, Freddy and Pinhead and Samara Weaving's character from Ready or Not, which reminds me of the nice nod in Scream 3 when they're like when Gale and Jennifer are like, you look like, and then she's like, don't let me, tell you who you look like, because I feel like that would have been one of those Samara Weaving kind of tie-ins to her character from the beginning of the film. But it was a nice homage to a lot of different horror characters. And of course, Mindy gets stabbed. And I like how they express their fear of getting hurt again, because I can imagine if you've been hurt, stabbed, shot, whatever it might be, you're not really looking forward to that again soon at any point in time that you know of. But the killer starts to leave masks from every Ghostface incident. They explain Sydney off as just going somewhere safe with Mark from part 3 and the kids, and that makes total sense. Sydney's not really involved there. She's just kind of like, peace, I'm just gonna go take care of myself. Good. I wouldn't come back either, Sid. You've been through enough. But then the Ghostface killings are happening and they're brutal and just completely gnarly. I mean, this is very much what I heard, which is that it's dark and brutal, unlike any other Scream. I know people were like, Ghostface using a gun. Come on, man. Ghostface has used a gun throughout all of the Scream films, pretty much. I mean, Billy in the beginning had a gun. So that wasn't any sort of shocker, but he definitely just was going hard at it, but leaving that mask behind, the little breadcrumbs leading up to, of course, what has to be Sam and Billy and the OG. And it just seems that they're coming after Sam for some reason. Now, what could this possibly be? Well, they decide to trap Ghostface and execute him, and everybody set up these traps. They're working with the um, Dylan McDermott's police character, and they're trying to make it work. And then he calls them and he's like, hey, Kirby is unstable. She was let go from the FBI. And now all of a sudden, one of our thoughts is, oh my God, it is Kirby. We thought it might be. But turns out it's not. She was taken out and is Dylan McDermott. And the two ghost faces are curly haired dude called out from the beginning. Quinn, a little bit of a surprise, but who are they? Who the heck are these people? And why are they after Sam? Well, it's a classic case of Scream 2, where it's the dad of Richie. That's why, oh yeah, Richie keeps calling him on the phone the whole time. You're like, what is this about? And it's the dad. And then the two ghost faces are the siblings of Richie. And basically they're exacting their revenge. And they knew that he loved horror movies and Stab and Scream, like, well, not Scream, but the Woodsboro murders. And he was a ghost face. So they kind of created this shrine dedicated to him. And, you know, it was quite an interesting movie. I really learned to love Sam. I didn't exactly care for her in 5, although she was a different kind of character, and I thought that was extremely interesting because, we always have the stereotypical final girls. "Hey, Sammy, Mojo Jojo." Yeah, definitely. But, we we get a little bit of something different with Sam Carpenter, and, I really learned to like her. I thought she was fierce. It really developed her further in this movie. I felt like she had this fire to her, and she was really trying to, go and fix her crap that she has going on. And I love the dynamic with Tara, who really hasn't learned to deal with everything that's happened to her, and she's just trying to kind of push it down. So two different types of personalities trying to deal with things. Of course, Sam is like, this is all my fault because Billy Loomis is my dad. And we also learned in the movie that basically Sam and Tara were like, hey, mom, we know. And their mom was like, Sam, I disown you because of that. And then Tara was like, I disown you because you won't talk to Sam. And it's just the two of them and their family. And then the whole kind of theme is protecting family. It was like a Fast and Furious movie. throughout the movie, where they were just out to protect the family at the very end. It is interesting also. I love how Scream has really taken on a bunch of just different expectations and twisted them around. So the beginning, the collection element, the you know not having revealing a killer early on, like immediately, and actually killing two ghost faces immediately. Wild. Um, the old masks, coming back. I did like the tie into like a shrine and everything like that, that went from Richie all the way back to the beginning, because it was that trail of ghost faces. And everybody kind of assumed that, Sam was responsible for it all, but of course she wasn't. Really found it to be an interesting, like, requel idea, to be a sequel to a remake requel that is about it's kind of similar to Scream 2, in which, there's the family angle, avenging the previous film's Ghostface killer, one of the Ghostface killers. I thought that that was super interesting. Um, Dylan McDermott seems to give a fairly cheesy performance, but if you rewatch part two with Nancy Loomis, I mean, she's insane, kind of corny, but it works so well. Maybe it's because it was the 90s, but I feel like it just reflected that a lot. Of course, you got to have like one kind of insane but reserved killer, that's Quinn, and then you've got to have more of a crazy person that reflects Stu, and that was the guy. I don't even remember his name. Curly haired guy. Apparently, he was the one in Avatar 2, the boy, that that boy who's hanging out with the Na'vi. Apparently, that was him. I am really good at recognizing faces, but I would not have connected that. Did not see that coming. Um, Quinn was like, "This mask that I'm wearing was Stu's. He's my favorite." I was like, "He's my favorite. My favorite." Speaking of Stu, there is a pretty interesting nod in the movie of Kirby and Mindy, which we get them going back and forth about all their horror opinions, which everybody wanted so badly. And we got that. And they were sitting in front of the TV that killed Stu Macher. And then Kirby was like, "Well, if you believe that, which, are we going to tease a little bit for Scream 7? Or maybe they're just going to subvert expectations again and just bring us in one area and to the other." I'm just very curious what they're going to do with Scream 7 thus far. I actually feel like the reasoning for all the killings this time was a little weak. I mean, it was a little less connected to horror culture, I want to say. I just felt it was a little weaker. I did predict that there would be some kind of true crime tie-in, which there was a connection between the collection and true crime, the truth of what really happened and things like that. But and they did talk about, people having things happen to them and the trauma affecting them, and maybe they just snap, or talking about how in true crime and the short docu-series are all the rage, and it really was. There was a little bit of that, but I guess screams have always been a little bit of the true crime kind of thing, because you had the horror element, which was Stab, and then the true crime element, which was Scream. So the two coming together. Brandon said, "Overall, I enjoyed Scream 6, but I prefer Scream 5 story and characters." Tell me more about that, Brandon. Why did you like Scream 5? Because I still actually place it last. Brand said, "Jack Champion, thank you." Brandon said, "Scream really isn't about the commentary on horror tropes anymore." It isn't, but it really has been. I mean, it's not about the horror tropes, but about horror itself. So even going back to Scream 5, it's it was a requel. It was a commentary on what's going on with Halloween, you know, a requel, like a remake, but also a sequel. So you've got the original people from the what was it? Not a trilogy, but the four original things. But kind of remaking, but then stemming off of that story. And so 6 was a sequel to the requel. So it's kind of its own trilogy now, which they basically comment on in the movie. And they reflect Scream. So it gets a little meta there and the kind of storyline. So it makes me wonder what's going to happen in Scream 3. Are they going to do some kind of Hollywood angle? Are they going to have one killer who is kind of at the heart of it all? Is Sam going to turn bad? Is Sydney going to return? I can imagine that Sydney's going to have to return for one last time, but maybe not, you know. Will they have it tie back all the way to the beginning, but it'll have a Stu angle? Who knows? I really feel like if they're going to close out this requel trilogy, they're going to have to come up with something pretty powerful. And I know not everybody was a fan of Halloween Ends, but I loved Halloween Ends. Heroic Waffles. Hey, what's up? Hope you're good. I am good, Heroic Waffles. How are you doing? I love waffles, especially when they save my day because they're heroic. So if I had to give it a Flaming Pumpkin score, I'd say it was 3.5 Flaming Pumpkins out of a possible 5 Flaming Pumpkins, which is a real rating system. And if you don't know about the Flaming Pumpkins, you should check out Snacks and Screams. But it was good. The more I noodle on it, the more I'm like, eh. But it was refreshing. It was brutal. It was dark, very much so. The beginning had me fangirling, seeing Kirby back, one of my top favorite horror characters and Scream characters. We got a little bit of Gail. She wasn't exactly safe, but she ended up being safe in the end. We got some nods back to Dewey. Of course, Gail just writes another book about everything that happened. Gail never learns. Like at this point, it's the 6th movie and she's freaking writing books about everything. Everyone's like, don't write a book about the thing. She's like, I won't. She writes a freaking book. But or will Gail have some tie to the killer? Because they commented that she's, you know, where would she be without Ghostface? And she's got to keep it going, you know? So I really do hope they expand it in the 6th one and make it meta. So like the real people. I mean, it could very well be like the real people from the Stab movies team up with the characters from the real life events in a horror con at a giant horror con reunion, which would then reflect on part 3 when people from the movies team up with the real characters in so many ways, which would be a nice tie-in to horror as a whole and the greatness that it has become as a genre and the popularity and how it's gone from being underground to being kind of not well known but extremely popular, especially all of these events and horror in general. So that would be interesting, and I'm still dying to see something like that. Sammy said, I just hope that the next one has actual main character deaths instead of emotion manipulating my soul. Yeah, I'm really hoping that they just stop giving people mortal wounds and then bringing them back. Murder somebody serious for real next time. Make it all, everyone's like, everybody's, can die. And it's like, just every time you see a random person added to the characters, like, they're gonna die, or they're the ghost face, or whatever, because that's still a thing. So I want to see somebody. This is it. I want to see somebody who has been in one of the previous Scream movies that we're familiar with, don the mask. They are Ghostface. Mindy, oh, Ghostface, you were a victim, now you're Ghostface? What? Kirby, oh, you were a victim, now you're Ghostface? Who knows? I'm really hoping that we see that. Brandon said, I like 5 more because of its straight roots to the original series, yet it did a lot of repeating, but I like the characters a lot more. In IMO, it was way darker than 6. That's interesting to say that it was way darker than 6, because Ghostface was super brutal in 6. I'm going to have to rewatch number 5 because I just was like, Brandon said, more brutality doesn't mean scarier to me. Only exception I would say is Rob Zombie's Halloween. I don't necessarily mean scarier. I don't really think it was necessarily scarier. I just think the force of Ghostface was and the grittiness of the film, of how it was shot, that New York angle made it more of a dark film. The ending got a little silly though, I would say. But I did like seeing, spoiler alerts, oh, we've already done that, Sam don the Billy Loomis costume. I thought that was really interesting. But Still laugh every time I see Skeet Ulrich in that de-aged Billy. Cracks me up. Brandon said, I thought the writing for Scream 6 was a tad weak. I can kind of see that. But my problem with part 5 is that, yeah, we have all these characters come back and we really get the requel. So it's kind of a fresh take on everything that's, somewhat familiar. But I thought that they just did not handle Sydney very well. I thought that she should have had more of a strong tie-in with Sam, and who knows, maybe they'll team up in part 7. That would be quite wild because I just feel like their connection was weak. And I feel like when you have two final girls from a franchise, especially one that had pretty much one final girl, no, it didn't. I was wrong. It had 3 final girls. And then Sydney, Gail, and Dewey the whole time pretty much. We lost one of them in 5, almost lost one of them in 6, and but Sydney was always the reason somehow. So she was the core final girl. So I would love to see her come back and do something with Sam. But I will say that I wasn't the 5 angle of the fans trying to recreate it interesting. Bought the house, wanted to do it justice, but how would you actually make a film and do it justice if you're just going after the daughter of Billy Loomis? Like, you should just go back after Sidney Prescott, you know what I'm saying? Just take it back to some dark roots about the true nature of it, because it got a little silly in the Stab movies. Go back and torture Sidney Prescott because she got off pretty easy. That's my thoughts. Scream 6, though, I just feel like the Ghostface reasoning was very much part 2. It was more so the Nancy Loomis angle than it was like, oh, blame it on the movies or something like that. That was really timely. I just felt like it didn't really have that commentary so much. But I guess it could if your son loves something so much. Like, somebody kills me and I'm a Freddy Krueger fan. Like, will my parents still carry on my legacy? I don't know. I just can't see that being a factor, really. Austin, hey, bud. Ghostface joins Jason Voorhees in The Predator and having iconic subway scenes. Yes. Everybody on the subway, quickly. Freddy's next. Brandon said, what did you think of Gail's change of character from 5 to 6? How so? I didn't really see that much of a difference. I still feel like she was Gail Weathers. They just had less of her. And she didn't fight because she got her ass kicked. Let me know if I'm missing something. Sammy said, I think they should open 7 by killing Mark to force Sid right back in. What if everything's on the table in part 7? What if? That would be interesting. That'd be terrifying, but interesting. What if Sydney's kids get involved? Bitch, we're getting the whole town. Evil dies tonight. Jesus. Hey, Danny. I just saw Scream 6 on Monday, and the audience and I were having a great time with it. Loved Kirby styling this movie. She looked so good in her leather jacket, which I want, by the way, and her short hair. She honestly grew up. And I love her reasoning for becoming an FBI agent because she didn't be scared anymore. She wanted the evil people to be scared of her. Cute. So cute. So cute. Love that, Kirby. Hey, Corey. How you doing, bud? Thanks so much for joining me. We were just talking about Scream 6. So everybody, now that you know I've given it 3.5 flaming pumpkins out of a possible 5 flaming pumpkins, which is a real rating system, what are your ratings out of 5 flaming pumpkins for Scream 6? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious. So now that we've talked about Scream 6, what do you think of the Billy to My Stew documentary? So we made that last March at Horror Hound in Cincinnati, and I'm definitely a part of it because we wanted to have the Billy and Stu angle and just the friendship between Brittany and I, but we also wanted to showcase Brittany meeting Skeet, which hopefully we did justice for, like all of the different experiences she had with him, because especially being at the table with him. because Brittany is such a huge Skeet fan. I mean, as far as I can think back to her, she's always been sharing Skeet pictures and talking about how much she loves Skeet and just Skeet, 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 and Skeet, Skeet, Skeet. And everybody knows that she loves him. I just feel like if you know Brittany, you know that she's a Skeet Ulrich fan and a Billy Loomis fan. And so to finally get to see her meet him is something we wanted to showcase for her to have on her own for a memory, because you don't often have that footage of you meeting somebody that you love for the first time. But we wanted to show that and her reaction, and then get people that who know her and how much she loves Skeet to see those moments of her meeting him, because that's partially what makes convention so magical is you watch these people over and over again and you love them, and you never know if you're going to meet them or not, and you finally meet them, like there they are in front of you, and it just is awesome. And I always have been very passionate about people's fandoms and showcasing fandom and talking to people about what they care about. And so Jason just did a phenomenal job just situating certain things, because I am a sporadic person and going to cons, I'm like, oh. And so he did a really good job of being like, over here, D, over here, let's talk about this. And we came up with a little bit of a plan at the beginning. We were in constant contact with Brittany. We had gotten media passes for the weekend, so we could basically go anywhere and do anything, especially if we wanted to get this particular footage of the actors up at the end of the hallways, which was tough because there was not a lot of wiggle room to get up there. But I love the shot when Brittany and I are talking in her hotel room, and in the mirror you could see me, but it's mostly focused on Brittany. And the cuts back and forth between me being a wild gazooka. I don't know that I just made it that word. And Brittany, who's calm and collected. I mean, it really just does show her Billy side and my like Stu side. Um, but I loved showcasing that. I'm glad we got him to come in and get footage of kind of us taking that photo. I would have loved to have had footage of us taking the duo with Skeet and Matt, but to get that afterward, which if you haven't seen that photo, I have it on my Instagram. It is just so great. And if you want to know the story, I'm not going to tell you. You could watch the little mini doc, or maybe you already have, and you um, understand like what we were going for and what our reactions were. And it was just so exciting to meet Matthew, because I just have loved him for such a long time, and never had the opportunity, never could meet him. And so finally, when he was announced at Horror Round, there was just no turning back for me. I just knew that he was one of those people that I had to go meet. And so I really, really enjoyed it. I loved talking to Britt. It was definitely a learning lesson, I think, for Jason and I, figuring out what we want to do more of on this channel, how we want to do it, what we could do better. Because everything is a learning lesson. You could prepare as much as you want. You could be experienced and have all these different ideas. But once you get down to it, you know, incidents arise. Like the first day we were going to have Britt meet Skeet, but his line was capped by the time that we got there, and it had like just opened. So Saturday, we had given her our extra media pass. So she came in with us, and we were able to get her pretty much to the front of the line, which you saw, which we were so thankful for that. Um, but yeah, like I said, we love showing those stories, because we have stories. And of course, you've seen my stories and the stories of many of my friends and Fred heads. But when I was in college, I was a part of a co-ed service fraternity, and next to where we had our little office space was the anime club. And I was always telling them that I loved horror movies and I'd go to horror cons, but I was asking them, why do you like anime? What animes do you like? What anime should I watch? Do you guys cosplay? Tell me about your cons and things like that. And I eventually became an honorary member and came to their end of the year anime festival. So what do you guys think about more stories of fans and people, about the things that they love or how they got to where they are? I had a podcast for a little bit called The Horrorpreneur. I don't know if you could still find it, but basically I interviewed people who had done something amazing or just something going on. I interviewed Casey from The Homicidal Homemaker, Nathan Thomas Milner, who's done art for Horror Hound, and he made the Confessions of Fred Krueger movie, and some other people on there, Ashley Blackwell, who is from Graveyard Shift Sisters, and she's been a part of other documentaries like Horror Noir, which is about the history of Black horror, and just talking about how they got to where they are, their origins and love for horror, what they've learned along the way, and kind of almost like a sharing of their heart, but also some learning lessons for other people who share some interest and maybe want to do something with it. Because if there's one thing that I've learned, is that you can't let anybody stop you from loving that thing that you love, because you never know how it could change your life, whether it's a new career, people that you meet, places that you go, memories that you make, whatever. It's all on the table and it's all possible if you're a fan of something. I'm going to read the comments. Corey said, loved it. Four Flaming Pumpkins. I loved it. You all did such an amazing job. Thank you about that. Danny said the documentary was pretty epic. It turned out really awesome. I super appreciate that. Brandon said, I need to rewatch Scream 6, but out of the theater reaction, I give it 3 stars, or in my rating, there's a potential spark in you. Love that. Danny said, so cool that you met so many of the cast like that. Sick. Brandon said that was a great photo. Corey said, cons are so magical like that. Danny said, oh, forgot to mention how much I love Demi Lovato still live for the soundtrack. Had it on repeat after the movie. Me too. Oh my gosh, to get Demi Lovato involved in Scream, like they have just turned Scream into a blockbuster movie. The red carpet presentation of everybody, Demi Lovato being there, being, pretty much an A-list star, creating music for it, and then, having Spencer Charnas of Ice Nine Kills be in the music video, and then in Scream itself having an Ice Nine Kills sticker that was really nice. I got super excited. I kept begging Jason. I was like, "Oh my God, look." And he was like, I know, I know, I know, I know. I was like, I'm sorry, I can't help it. Thank God there was nobody in the row with us. And like we have the recliner seats. And I just think people were kind of spread out because we went on Thursday at like 8:45 or something like that. That I was definitely talking and excited, but I was just fangirling the whole time because I love Scream so much. And here we are watching another movie in the theater, and it was pretty dope. Brandon said, I have a question about the Kinder Trauma Kickstarter. If we miss the window to buy a DVD, will the Kickstarter be reopened closer to the release date? So, I wish I had information for you on this. Um, there might be another Kickstarter that they'll do a little bit later. But I suppose now is a good time as any to say that I have resigned from Kinder Trauma for a multitude of reasons, but I just felt that it was best. And wanting to keep this channel going was so important to me and to Jason. And that documentary was taking up a lot of time. So, really wanted to kind of rework my focus, but I felt that it was best for them and for me to step away. It's super sad and it took a lot of thought and a lot of reflection. But I have unfortunately stepped away for Kinder Trauma. But of course, that's not the end, as I just assume there are so many other opportunities out there. But like I said, this was just for the best, I think, for everybody. So yeah, that is pretty much it. I appreciate you guys tuning into this and finding this after the some confusion of the link. I had a little blip there, but it's all on me. And for watching the Billy to My Stew documentary and leaving a comment or sharing or whatever it might be, and if there's somebody that you guys know that you think would make for a great subject that you would love to have a documentary about them. Now, I'm not saying there's tons of documentaries about, all the main horror people out there. You get lots of interviews with like Jamie Lee Curtis and Robert Englund on this thing, and Robert has his own documentary coming out, but like a YouTuber, a horror YouTuber, or um, a horror author, or the composer for some kind of movie, or just something, anything, you know, dead meat. Dude, love whatever it might be, to do a documentary on these extended portions of the horror community, because the horror community is so much more than just the superstars in front of the camera. It's also the people behind the camera and the people who don't normally get featured. They are the ones that help make it possible, because it's not just the people in front of the camera, you know? I mean, there's hundreds. Every time you go to a movie and you see the credits roll, I mean, all of those people have a story. All of those people played a role in making that movie possible. And even if you don't, even if they're not on the screen, maybe they have a podcast about the movie, or they have a YouTube channel about the genre, or are an artist or a musician who does scores for something. I mean, there's just so many people out there. I mean, when Jamie Lee Curtis won her Oscar, congrats, Jamie. I She thanked the people who supported her genre films throughout the years, which of course were the horror fans, anybody who makes horror movies. It really is true. There's hundreds and thousands, there's thousands of us, millions of us actually, all over the world. And we all have some special talent or something that we've done because of horror, in horror. And I think it's really worth sharing those people's stories, our stories. Corey said, "Deandra, you and Jason killed it. I absolutely love you guys. We love you too." Brandon said, "What's your favorite Scream end credit song of any of the past 6 films?" Well, that's hard to say. I really did like Demi Lovato's song a lot. Um, and this other one is the opening for Scream 4, but, I love the, Something to Die For. So good. Jason, stop talking about Creed. We don't talk about Creed. We were watching rewatching all the Screams, and, surprisingly, Scream 3 has an immense amount of Creed. Posters, music, whatever. Why is Creed so involved? Producers, Creed. Wild. But dope. So I would definitely say I really like Demi Lovato's song, and, I mean, there's a ton, but that one I've listened to over and over again, and then Something to Die For from, Scream 4. I love that song. Love it. But yeah, what about you guys? What are your favorite end credits or Scream associated songs? You can't say Red Right Hand, that's off the table. It's different. This is just as much as part of the movies as the Sydney. I don't know. But thanks, guys, for watching. Thank you so much for watching the little mini doc. And, leave your comments if you're here after. And I will see you next week. A week closer to April, which is closer to the sunshine, which is closer to being able to wear all my horror shirts and not have to put a jacket over them. Fall Out of Love from Scream 5 are bangers. Bangers. Scream's got some good bangers. So much that goes from an idea all the way to production. Thank you for shouting out everyone that makes these projects possible. Absolutely. So many unsung heroes. Have a super awesome week, guys. Stay spooky, my friends, and we'll see you next week. Bye.